Good morning, everyone. Let's stand for a moment of silence and then the pledge. And as we think today, please keep Nancy Bell, a member of the Boonesboro MS community who passed this past weekend. Please keep her in your thoughts and her family. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order. First, Commissioner Wagner has had a scheduled vacation and is absent. He sends his regards. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for June 16th. Commissioners, have you reviewed? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Next, we'll begin with staff comments. Anybody from the staff for comments? Be sure to wipe your area and appreciate that consideration.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Moos, Director of the Division of Environmental Management, and I'm here with Dave Mason, Deputy Director of the Department of Solid Waste. We're here this morning to request the Commissioner's approval to discontinue the styrofoam recycling program at the Washington County landfill. I'll turn it over to Dave to let him explain in more detail.
Well, we've started the program in 2010. Since then, we've had one truckload of styrofoam that has been taken out of our site. We need to discontinue it just because of lack of product. We have issues with vendors who want the product, but we just can't produce enough to satisfy their demands. And with our MDE permit, they're cracking down on us storing materials for more than 12 months. So there's no way we could ever get 24 pallets of material in a year's time. We normally produce maybe 4 pallets per year. So it's similar to what we had to do 2 or 3 years ago with the plastic bag and shrink wrap recycling. We just had to discontinue it because we just don't produce enough volume. So,
Dave, is there a piece of machinery related to the styrofoam recycling?
yes, there's a.
What will happen to it?
We could probably sell it, just try to recoup some cost for it. It was fairly expensive whenever we first purchased it, but we could probably get something from it.
Do you remember the price for the piece of equipment that we purchased?
It was $26,000. Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
It also is, like Dave mentioned, it's a regulatory issue because MD only require, we have to have this stuff off-site within 1 year, and we don't receive enough for a vendor to come in and remove it once a year.
Yeah.
So then the styrofoam would just go into the landfill?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. I mean, we'll continue to look for other options, but for right now, that's the only option we have.
Market may change as well. Correct?
It may.
If something happens, we can always, continue recycling it, if we find another vendor or other means.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, do we need a vote or anything on this?
This is just.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You said we sold 1 truckload. So do we pay to sell the truck? Well, we don't pay to sell, but if we sold it, what do we get?
We made $1,200 on that truck.
The last time we've made any kind of revenue off styrofoam was in 2015, and that was the $1,200. Okay. Other than that, it costs us money.
Right now, I take this as information only. If you need a vote, bring it back as an agenda item, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, forgive me, I accidentally skipped over commissioner reports. My apologies. Vice President Baker, would you have any comments?
Nothing today.
Commissioner Kiefer?
Nothing today, sir.
Commissioner Meinl-Schmidt?
I just hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. This was for our first meeting back, so hopefully everybody enjoyed that. No, we didn't have our Antietam fireworks, but we had the Fairgrounds fireworks were nice, and even the Fountainhead Country Club's fireworks were nice, and I know there was others around, so hopefully we all enjoyed the 4th of July.
And I said earlier, Commissioner Wagner had a scheduled vacation. For the record, I'd like to enter Nancy Bell's name into paper for her distinguished and outstanding volunteerism for the community of Boonesboro and the EMS community. Her loss is a loss to our community, and our prayers and concerns for her family. With that, that's all my comments. I'd like to start a little early, but in communication center discussion. Is everybody?
More staff comments?
Oh, pardon me. Any other staff comments before I go? Attorney comments?
No comments this morning.
Krista, would you update us on committees?
I just wanted to share an update on the boards and commissions that I have been encouraging each committee and commission to meet practicing social distancing. There's no reason those committees can't continue to meet. And we encourage it, and we have been receiving minutes. If anybody has any questions on who's been meeting and the progress of each commission, just let me know.
Is there any update on the environmental subcommittee?
I'm working with Lacey Capshaw on forming that. I believe we're waiting on one more
Yeah,
commissioner's
I still
recommendation,
need a confirmation.
and then they'll
That's
be
my
ready to
fault.
go.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Please forgive me for being out of order. We're a little early, but we'll continue and do the annual Emergency Communications Center Police Dispatching at the city of Hagerstown. Please come forward. Everybody introduce yourself. Kevin, are you going to be involved in?
Only if the discussion is necessary.
Okay. Please, Charlie, you can sit up front. Everybody's on. Just, oh, you pulled a chair. Yeah, there. You can sit there. That's fine. But no microphone.
We saved a chair for you.
We're good.
All right. If staff's listening, someone might want to bring Charlie a microphone if it's a handheld. Director Hayes, would you begin? Introduce the matter and your colleagues.
Sure. Dave Hayes, Director of Emergency Services. We're here to provide a brief update to the commissioners relative to the ECC payment, annual ECC payment due by the city that is a result of the consolidation of the Hagerstown Police Department's dispatching services into the county's dispatch center in 2009. The report is during the May 5th, 2009 council meeting, city council work session, and they had a subsequent motion on May 26, 2009. The city of Hagerstown and the Washington County Board of County Commissioners agreed on the consolidation of dispatching services for the Hagerstown Police Department. At that time, Hagerstown provided its own police dispatching services. They operated on their own radio system, 800 megahertz, and the county was moving over to a new digital P25 system, 400 megahertz, and there was an advantage to the city of coming onto that system, and one, that their system was upgraded immediately, and then secondary, it allowed complete interoperability communications, not just amongst the police departments, but also the fire and EMS community. The consolidation occurred in the new Washington County Communication Center located at Elliott Parkway. And with that consolidation, it was agreed upon that they would pay a sum of $406,000 annually, which at that point was the total of 11 city employees that would transfer their service from city employment to county employment coming across. That was 85%. That $406,000 was 85% of their base salary. It did not include the benefits section. Since then, a number of those employees have retired out, but the city has continued to pay the $406,000. The intent of consolidating the service was to improve the effectiveness and efficiencies to all citizens of the county. At this point, it's our belief that the city has taken a position that they would like to enter into discussions about that service fee, but I was not the director at the point that that consolidation occurred. So for historical reference, Sheriff Mullendore was the sheriff at that point. Our director of training was a sitting director of emergency services, and we have with us Charlie Summers, who was the operations captain for the Hagerstown Police Department. The three individuals to my left here all were integral parts and architects that was in the design of not only the radio system, but the consolidation itself. So I've asked them to attend with me to answer any questions that the board may have relative to the semantics and what the intent of the $406,000 annual payment was.
Is Sheriff, would you like to begin with some historical perspective?
Sure. I was sheriff at the time and very much involved in this whole process. It was actually a combination. We had two entities that had unions at that time and one sheriff's office who did not. Chief Smith was also involved. It was actually Chief Smith who brought forward the 85% of the salaries, and we all agreed to that, that it would be in perpetuity, because it would be a cost savings and efficiency for the city of Hagerstown to have their dispatch consolidate with the county at that time. And so that was all agreed upon. I believe Chief Smith is the one that presented that to the city council. D. Hallbaker, and at that time it was Miss Messina, Donna Messina from the city of Hagerstown were the two HR directors that were involved. And again, all parties agreed to that concept at that time.
Charlie, you have anything to add?
Yeah, as the captain of operations and obviously a city employee, as we work through the institution of the radio system and the combining these units, I had a position that I wanted to do what was best for the city of Hagerstown. And I knew by only paying 85% of their current employee costs, the city would save a benefit and probably save on the at least just for the employee costs, the salary costs, about $70,000 a year, and probably has saved that $70,000 a year every year since 2009. So it was right for all the reasons, for public safety, for the efficiency of all the operations, for the saving of money for the city of Hagerstown, and to keep the city of Hagerstown from having to look to save money or float a bond to upgrade their radio system sometime in the future. So at that time, I was a city employee, and I was doing what I thought was best for the city of Hagerstown, and I think everybody agreed at that time. For us, it truly was a no-brainer, and it was best for all of the citizens of Washington County.
Kevin, we covered everything from,
Yeah, I mean, I think, in closing, it's kind of, other documents have been included. I mean, the intent of the consolidation, I mean, for a period of time, we even had MSP working with us to benefit the citizens and stuff in moving forwards. And I know these funds have been a part of different discussions, literally from that date now to today. So if there's any specific questions.
Can I say
Harold?
something real quick?
Yeah.
I would just also like to make sure that the record shows that the minutes from the mayor and city council meetings from May 5th specifically state that the sum will remain unchanged in future years, even though some employees may retire or otherwise leave employment. And I also would like to note that on May 26th meeting minutes, it talks about the consolidation, enhancing emergency response services to the public, promote communication and interoperability between the city and county operations, and reduce annual expenditures for the city by $376,000 in just 2009 and 10 alone.
Commissioners, any comments or other questions?
Just a question I have, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, whoever wants to answer. One of the arguments the city of Hagerstown has shared with me, different members of the council, I would say, is municipalities that have a police force don't have to pay for this type of service. What's our answer to that question? Can anyone respond
I'll
to that?
take that at first, then I'll defer over to the sheriff. So the simple answer to that for me, being part of the management structure of the communications center, is they're the only municipality we dedicate 2 full-time dispatchers to. Everybody else is part of the sheriff's department's radio communications network. Right or wrong, that's the reality, and to me, that's the simple answer. Now, let Doug explain further.
And by far, Commissioner, the city police use of the system is far greater than anybody else. And there's no way that the sheriff's office could take that under our control and be able to dispatch the same as we do for the 3 smaller municipalities. The 3 smaller municipalities at that time had 3 to 4 individuals. And since then, a couple of them have gone to 5, but it still hasn't become a burden that we can't handle. If at some point we had to add dispatch as a result of that, then I think there would have to be negotiations with the other
Is there like a
municipalities as well.
percentage to the number of calls dispatched that Hagerstown has compared to the other towns.
Yeah, we haven't ran that number out in a finite capacity, but we know generically, looking at the system, about 60% of the workload, fire, EMS, and law enforcement, resides within the corporate limits of the city. And that would include the 911 system workload as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one or two. I think the confusion is there's never been a written contract.
That's
But
correct.
there is verification in notes and minutes that this was to go into perpetuity. Is that correct? Yes. And that the fee would stay the same in perpetuity. What would be the cost of that service in today's, and I know you may not have figured out an estimate, but what would be the cost of that service today?
It would be attached in part to that, attachments to that question would include not just the personnel cost, but what would the infrastructure cost? As an example, we spend just on radio maintenance per year in a contract, $1 million. We have an annual contract with Motorola for $1 million. Now, a much larger radio system than the city would need, but there certainly would be something similar. The CAD system that drives our center's operations, that is a $200,000 a year annual maintenance part, and the list just goes on. The CIP investments, we have a complete backup center that has full capacity that the Elliott Parkway Center moves through. So it would be hard, Commissioner, to quantify that number,
But it would be more than 406.
yeah, you could take, if you're going to stay at 85% and add even just a simple 2.5% inflator, that number would likely be well above 550, 600,000. And then if you looked at the benefits side of that 406,000 likely would be 570 if you included the benefits. So again, some of these discussions are well outside of my purview. I only bring those to light as just a simple point of conversation and clarity. So, you know, from that's kind of where we are.
Okay, in closing, commissioners, anybody else have a closing comment or question?
I do have one more thing I want to add, and I pointed this out in a recent discussion with some of the city officials. To me, we're talking about $406,000, and I don't hide behind this conversation, but the county also pays the city about $200,000 for a crime lab, and you can help me with this, Sheriff, if I'm off base on this. So I really think you're talking about the difference of $200,000. I wouldn't believe that we should pay a service fee if the county doesn't pay a service fee, or the city doesn't pay a service fee. So to me, if you offset that 400 with the 200 we're already paying, we're talking about $200,000. My opinion, I'm not the expert on that, but that is one of the points that I brought up in a recent conversation with city staff.
Do other communities have a crime lab that, or other cities, municipalities have a crime lab that the counties pay for?
No. We're the only one. And we don't pay the full freight, but what we do pay is 50% of the salaries and some operational costs. And the reason for that is the city actually uses them for property and other things as well. The Sheriff's Office uses the Western Maryland Regional Lab for basically lab results for drugs and for some processing of evidence and things like that. If we have a major crime scene, they will respond out if it's a homicide or robbery, things like that.
So we're paying for half of the salary, or are we using half of their resources?
We're not paying for half of the lab, we're only paying for half of the salaries, and I would say we certainly get that benefit. Okay, very good.
I would just like
Sarah?
to note too, one of our neighboring counties, Frederick County, has a similar situation as Washington County with the ECC, because Frederick County's ECC provides dispatching services for the city of Frederick. The only difference is the city of Frederick physically employs the dispatchers that handle that police dispatching for the city. So they just work out of the Frederick County ECC, but the costs do belong to the city of Frederick, just for information.
So it's, and basically it's not the only one, which we keep hearing we're the only.
That's correct.
Okay, if no other comments or questions, thank you for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, contract award, Vesta 911 hardware refresh upgrade for EMS.
I'm staying, I wouldn't have had to wait.
Curry, please come forward. Thank you for your wiping down the area. Thank you. Introduce your partners and the subject matter, please.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Subject for you is contract award PUR 1469, vested 911 hardware refresh upgrade for Division of Emergency Services. Recommended motion to award the contract for the purchase and installation of the vested 911 hardware refresh upgrade and all the related hardware and software to Carousel Industries of Newport News, Virginia, for a total value of $2,161,502.51 and an annual maintenance cost of $70,760 per year, contingent upon the county attorney's approval and the final service agreement between the county and the vendor. As you can see in the RF, the upgrade will enhance the 911 system to allow for the video, text information at the primary center, the backup center, and also the state police barracks. There is a training to take place on the modules. There are liquidated damages in the amount of $500 per day. Also, you can see in the RFP was advertised through the normal processes that we normally do as far as website, local newspaper. We did receive 2 proposals, which they were evaluated, and both were considered to be responsive, and they both were opened. And per the recommendation of the coordinating committee, we're asking that the upgrade be awarded to Carousel Industries of Newport News, and funds in the amount of $2,548,807.50 is in an account with the funds provided by the Numbers Board, and no county funds are being requested for this project. And we do have concurrence from the coordinating committee, and you also have a copy of the price proposals of the 2 proposals that were received. Any questions?
Rick, real quick, so the 2.5 million is in that account. We're taking 2.1 for the initial contract, and then of that remaining, does the 70,000 also come from that the 70,000 annually?
That'll be an annual contribution, but it won't come from that $2.5 million. The residual will be turned back.
Okay.
But each year we'll apply for the maintenance.
Okay. What happens if the maintenance doesn't come? Does that become a liability on the county?
I mean, we'd have to have maintenance, that would be correct, but we've not had an issue with that to date, so I would expect we'd move forward. And those fees, if those that aren't aware, come from telephone surcharges. And we've actually gotten an additional amount relative to some increases through the Numbers Board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Charging per phone, not just per.
right, per account.
Have we heard anything from the state trying to take that yet because of COVID-19?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments, questions?
Is this, Dave, part of the next gen 911 under that umbrella and theme, or?
We're due for the hardware refresh either way, but this will put additional services in place that will allow that to interface better.
When do you expect the video 911, the text video, when would that be
So
available to
text to
citizens?
911, we're expecting to have launched here in the next couple months. We're finishing out a program and working with the cellular carriers. There's actually a whole coordination that has to go with the cellular carriers where they're ready to handle that particular aspect to get that to 911. Once that's complete, we'll come live with that here, but that should be in the next couple months.
Any other comments, questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve the contract as presented.
I move to approve the contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, contract award Acquire and upgrade additional device management licenses, Rick Curry and Josh O'Neill. Please introduce yourself in the matter.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Joshua O'Neill, Division Director of Information Systems.
Before you is Contract Award PUR 1474, acquire and upgrade additional device management license for the county's existing mobile device management systems. Recommended motion, move to authorize for additional licensing in an amount of $66,600 from Teltech of Westminster, Maryland, based on this proposal dated June 26, 2020. As you can see in the RF, the upgrade will allow for during panic and the need to expand a license across the tele-network demands. This will be a 5-year licensing agreement with no additional cost. We'll get 1 year free if we make this purchase before July 20th of this year. And funds for that project will be coming from the CARES grant, as you can see in the ARF. And also you have an attachment that shows the pricing from the 3 vendors that were solicit pricing for the upgrade. Any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
So it's a one-time purchase, and then we have 5 years.
6 years if we purchase
1 year
now,
free,
right.
5 years.
Hearing no more comments, motion to approve.
Approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, intergovernmental cooperative purchase. Rick Curry, Jack Renard, please come forward, introduce yourself in the matter.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Jack Rainer, Fleet Manager, Highway Department.
You're getting to be a regular here, you know.
Yes.
It's like 2 weeks in a
Yes,
row,
sir.
go years and don't see you.
I'll try not to do that again.
Well, welcome.
The subject before you is Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG, is 20-0037 for 1 John Deere utility tractor for the Highway Department. Recommended motion to move to authorize a resolution of Highway Department to purchase 1 John Deere 5100M utility tractor for a total cost of $66,695.39 and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract that was awarded by Baltimore County Public Schools. Contract number 001B06000298 to John Deere of Cary, North Carolina. The Code of Public Laws does allow this governing body to participate in a procurement for goods and services when not being a part of. And we do feel that the savings does warrant us to utilize this contract for the administrative savings. As you can see, the fiscal impact, there is money in the Department CIP program for this purchase. We have concurrence from the Deputy Director of Highway. Also, you have the quote that was provided from the local dealer vendor, Smith's Implementing, for the purchase of the tractor. Are there any questions?
Is this replacing an old tractor?
Yes, replacing a 2002, about 9,000 hours on it.
And are we going to be selling that one?
We hope so.
Yes.
We're getting into this again where some of the other ones were transferred to other departments, so.
At some point, we're going to need to discuss, I feel we need to discuss this because it's becoming a routine situation where we feel we're going to be getting money back for these tractors and vehicles, but then departments find out about them and then they request them and they wind up having to spend money to put these units back in service, which I totally don't agree with. I don't know how the board feels.
I agree with you. I think if we're getting rid of it because it's costing maintenance or working, why would we give it to another spot so we continue spending money?
I mean, I can see if it's going on a landfill to be used on the face but not to be on the road, that's one thing. But to take a truck or a piece of equipment that has been deemed obsolete and then give it to another department to spend more money, and then we had a situation here recently where the department had gotten one a year ago and then came back here recently and they're waiting in line to get another one. I'm totally against it.
All right, you can bring that in for discussion at another time.
I will.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
I will.
Any more comments? If not, I call for a vote to approve the purchase.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, intergovernmental cooperative purchase. Randy, Zane, and
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandy Noggle, buyer in the purchasing office.
Zane Rao, Deputy Director of Highways.
The first recommendation I have for you this morning is for the intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 20-0033, for 3 new Altec telescopic aerial trucks. Move to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to purchase through lease 3 new telescopic aerial trucks with Altec Industries out of Birmingham, Alabama, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract. The Code of Public Laws does state that the county can use another jurisdiction's contract as long as we maintain the terms and the conditions of that contract. By using this Sourcewell contract, the county will have a direct cost savings due to the leverage that this contract has have made. The Highway Department has budgeted for the lease of these vehicles through their operating budget.
So my first question, are we purchasing this or are we leasing this?
We're leasing for 6 years. At the end of the 6 years, there is an option to purchase.
Did we do a comparison of what it would cost to buy these things? And what is the life expectancy past 6 years?
I believe the straight out cost was 301, I believe it was 301,000 approximately. As an example now, we have 3 bucket trucks. One's used for sign work, the other 2 are road work. The one that we'd like to replace is a 99, 232,000. We just put the 3rd transmission in it. So, I mean, a life expectancy, that's, almost 20 years, but we've already bought it almost double. So I would say a 10-year life to 12-year would be reasonable before it starts to really get you maintenance-wise.
Well, that's my next question. You said to replace 1. Are we replacing 3?
No, replacing 1, but we'd like to lease 3. That will put 1 in each district for maintenance, basically, but they can be used countywide. What we're running into is constantly running from district to district, shuffling them around, and it's just eating up time, and it's hard to schedule maintenance as far as road work, tree trimming.
How many do we currently have? Just 1?
We have 3. 2 are used for road work. 1 is used solely for sign and signals.
Okay.
these are budgeted funds, correct?
Correct.
All right, Commissioners, any more questions?
I would like to see the comparison of purchase versus lease. I'd like to see what that looks like. I'll defer to the other commissioners with this, but I know you're budgeted, but we're in tough times, and do we need 3 right now? Will 2 work? That's the information that I personally would like.
I would like to know, I would agree with the Commissioner that because of the uncertain budget times, I know it would be nice to have these spread out among our districts, and I know in some ways it could make their work a bit more efficient, but I think we need to be a little more conservative with our budget this coming year, and I'd like a little more information on the numbers and maybe consideration for not either purchasing or leasing all 3 right now.
Two commissioners making that request, I'm okay. Why don't you bring some of that information back and get on our agenda again in the near future?
Okay.
If we could have that next week, I'd be fine looking over that. That'd be perfect. If you have the time.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you.
Next agenda item, intergovernment cooperative purchase vacuum tanker. Randy, welcome back. Mark Bradshaw, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Again, I'm Brandy Nagel, a buyer in the purchasing department.
Mark Bradshaw, Deputy Director, Environmental Management.
The next recommendation is for an intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 20-0035 for one vacuum tanker. Move to authorize by resolution for the Washington County Water Quality Department to purchase one vacuum truck from Viacon out of Green Cove Springs, Florida, in the cost of $234,292. We will be using the Sourcewell contract, which is another jurisdiction's contract. We will be sticking to the terms and the conditions of that contract. And by utilizing this contract, we will have a direct cost savings in the purchase of the vacuum truck. Funds were budgeted in the capital improvement plan for water quality. Any questions?
Same question. Is this replacing a unit?
1982 Ford.
Outstanding. And we're going to be selling that 82 Ford for
We'll
$100?
be putting on gov deals once things relax here and we start advertising equipment again.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Commissioners, any more comments?
I would move to approve the purchase of this equipment.
I'll second it.
A first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, 4-0.
Thank you.
Next up, approval of zoning map amendment. Travis. Jill, are you filling in?
It's probably mostly me. Commissioners, there was a requested rezoning by Waltz LLC for a change from agricultural rural zoning designation to agricultural rural with a rural business overlay. The property is located on the north side of US 40, approximately quarter mile east of Spickler Road. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning change. There was a public hearing. The commissioners, after the public hearing, came to a consensus to support the rezoning change. The county attorney's office has approved or has prepared the decision, including findings of fact and conclusions of law, as well as a proposed ordinance to amend the zoning map. So if the commissioners wish to go forward and finalize the requested rezoning, it would be appropriate at this time for them to adopt the decision, findings of fact, as well as the ordinance to amend the zoning map.
I believe there was no opposition to this. So you're looking for a motion to approve the commissioners?
Motion to support the recommended motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Todd Moser, please come forward and introduce the matter, property acquisition for Frog Eye Road.
Good morning. Todd Moser, Real Property Administrator, Division of Engineering. Move to approve the option agreements for partial property acquisition, including fee simple and/or easements for 19807 Frog Eye Road, 1638 Royersville Road, and 19621 Frog Eye Road. And to approve an ordinance approving said purchase and to authorize the execution of the necessary documentation to finalize the acquisition. Option agreements have been executed for the above stated properties. Both fee simple and easement acquisitions are shown in the table below. 19807 Frog Eye Road, 17,418 square feet in fee simple, 14,511 square feet temporary construction easement for a total acquisition cost of $9,000. 1638 Royersville Road, 5,941 square feet and fee simple, 825 square feet in temporary construction easement. Total acquisition cost $3,350 in acquisition cost. 19621 Frog Eye Road, 10,088 square feet in fee simple. No easement acquisition for this property, and the total is $2,100 in acquisition cost. Frog Eye Road Bridge is the sole access for property owners on Frog Eye Road and in need of replacement. The new bridge will be constructed upstream of the existing bridge to allow for ingress egress across the existing bridge while construction is ongoing. And the anticipated start date for construction would be fall of this year.
Commissioners, comments, questions?
Motion to approve the recommended motion.
Have a motion, is there a second? I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. Thank you, Mr. Moses.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, Garrison, I believe, budget adjustment for the airport.
Good morning. We are looking for the approval from the commissioners for the budget adjustment for the belt loader. This is due to the delivery being pushed back into the FY 2021 budget. This budget adjustment will switch funds from FY 2020 operations budget into the capital equipment CIP. The purchase price of the belt loader was $29,100. And we have taken delivery of that on July 8th. So we were just looking for the budget adjustment in order to pay that invoice.
Make the motion to approve the budget adjustment.
Okay, I have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 4-0. Thank you, Garrison.
Thank you.
Next up, Administrative Office of the Courts Additional Security Funding. Please introduce yourself in the matter.
Morning, Commissioners. Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management. I think because we're running ahead, Kristen's not here, so I'm going to go ahead and present if that's okay. This morning, we are looking to move to approve the acceptance of grant funds in the amount of $53,440 for the Circuit Court security funding. The Circuit Court submitted an application on June 1st, 2020 to the Administrative Office of the Courts requesting additional security funding for the installation of the bullet-resistant backglazing on the existing windows near the courthouse entrance and the installation of bullet-resistant barrier and 2 bullet-resistant glass doors in the licensing department of the Clerk of Courts in the courthouse. And this will provide, as I said, $53,440 for Circuit Court expenses. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? First and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. Thank you. I believe I saw Cody. Please come forward, sir.
Morning, Commissioners. Cody Miller with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. At the beginning of May, we received notification from the Governor's Office of Crime Control Prevention that they were going to continue our sex offender funding this year without having to put an application in. It would be treated as a continuation. So on June 26th, we received notification that we were going to get $34,166. The Sheriff's Office plans to utilize the funding provided to fund 2 salaries of part-time civilian employees who will assist the sex offender register and re-register of sex offenders while also conducting compliance checks of employment as well as home addresses.
Yeah, I guess you're looking for a motion for submission
Motion
and
to
acceptance.
Accept the funding.
Accept the funding.
Motion to accept the funding.
Second.
Okay, first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
4-0. Next up, Emergency Management Performance of Grant for COVID-19.
Good morning, Tom Brown, Emergency Manager.
And Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager.
like to move to accept funding awarded by the Maryland Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $29,361.92. Purpose of the Emergency Management Performance Grant Program COVID-19 Supplemental is to provide federal funds to states to assist with public health and emergency management activities, supporting the prevention of, preparation for, in response to the ongoing coronavirus disease 2019 public health emergency. In accordance with the coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security. Division of Emergency Services will use 2020 EMPG supplemental funds to hire a contractual planner to work within the EOC to perform planning activities directly related to COVID-19. This planner will review, update, write plans specific to mitigation, response, and recovery efforts required by the COVID-19 event. The planner will work from the EOC and actively participate in planning and command meetings in an effort to provide them with a full understanding of key points that will need to be addressed in various required plans. This contractual planner will allow key command and general staff personnel to focus on their specific responsibilities, thereby allowing for better coordination of mitigation, response, and recovery efforts. This contractual planner had already been approved for hire and is currently working within the EOC. The performance period for this federal grant is October 1st, 2019 through August 1st, 2021. There's a 100% match requirement associated with this grant, which is covered by the Emergency Services operating budget. This grant will provide us with the $29,361.92 for emergency services related expenses, which may otherwise be added to the emergency services budget. Matching funds will be in the form of budgeted salaries, which is subject to approval in the county's operating budget for fiscal year 21.
My quick question on this is that 29,000, just exactly what you said. So it's in your operating budget, but what are we taking out of that operating budget to come up with that $29,000?
We don't have to take anything out of it. We just have to match it to $29,000. So we don't have to pay the $29,000. It can be in the form of salaries.
So we're not, that's what I'm trying to find. So
the county doesn't have to pay $29,361.92 to make a match. We can use salaries to match it.
To kind of further clarify, it's not supplanting any existing budgetary items. It's an add-on, but we have the match with our existing expenditures.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Because the position was already going to be hired and it was factored into the budget?
The position is not in the budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. The position was added as a result of COVID-19. Now we're able to get some grant funds to pay for it, and it requires a match, but we have ample existing operating costs to match it.
And then it says contractual employee, so it's a 1099. So there's no, okay.
In the hierarchy of the EOC and how it's been operating, who does this employee report to?
Me, the emergency manager.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, 4-0. Thank you very much.
you.
Next up, CARES Act Memorandum of Understanding, Charles Brown. Please introduce yourself and the matter.
Good morning again, Charles Brown, Emergency Manager. I'd like to move for the Board of County Commissioners to review and approve the Memorandum of Understanding between Washington County Government and the Washington County Health Department relative to CARES Act funding. Purpose of the MOU between Washington County Government and Washington County Health Department is to ensure cooperative understanding related to the disbursement of CARES Act funds from the healthcare portion allotted to Washington County. Approval of the MOU is necessary for audit purposes and will allow for requests for reimbursement to be made to the Washington County Health Department for purchases made by Washington County Government relative to healthcare expenditures which qualify under grant guidelines. An MOU with the Washington County Health Department is required before reimbursement for expenditures by Washington County Government can occur. The MOU will allow for reimbursement of expenses incurred by Washington County Government, specifically due to expenses incurred from the Division of Emergency Services and Emergency Operations Center in the amount of approximately $1 million. If denied approval of the MOU, we'll attempt to gain 75% of the original cost that the county is incurring through the FEMA PA process. One thing that I want to bring up is that at the time that this was written, there was another project. So it's not actually 1 million, it'd be closer to maybe 1.4. So to give you an idea of some of the items that this MOU is going to cover from the healthcare side of the CARES Act, up to $162,000 for aeroclaves, which are a mass disinfection system for each EMS department and special ops. Up to $35,000 for UTV lighting in all the ambulances to improve disinfecting in ambulance environment. Up to $250,000 for 100 PAPRs to use in place of or support of PPE for EMS. Up to $500,000 for a comprehensive PR campaign, which would be designed to remind and educate on the importance of wearing face coverings, social distancing, and hand washing. And this will be an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 and ensure the county can continue to remain open. And up to $600,000 for PPE and equipment, which has benefited all of Washington County by ensuring first responders are able to continue to provide services and providing safety to the citizens.
The only question I have with this, on page 12 and page 13, the representatives are not named in here. Otherwise, everything else seems perfect. It's asked in here about a representative for the health department and a representative for the board. I think that they should be named.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. So we can rewrite it and just add that in.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if it's telling who the primary point of contact for the health department should be, we should know who the primary point of contact is. And through the primary point of contact for the board side, the health department should have it so there's no going back on any type of misinformation. So it should just be named. If it's you and Earl, that's perfect. I just think we need to make sure it's named.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can add that. It's not a problem.
Okay. Motion to approve with the
Is there a
addition
second?
of names.
Second.
Great, I have first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Next up, CARES Act overview discussion. Please come forward, introduce the matter.
Again, Charles Brown, Emergency Manager. I'm going to start off the ARF, and then I'm going to turn it over to Susan Buchanan, Susan Small to give updates, and I think with Sarah Greek. So the intention for this discussion was to provide this body with an overview regarding the original spending plan for the non-healthcare portion of the awarded CARES Act funding to Washington County, and an explanation of work completed up to this point. The purpose of the CARES Act, specifically the Coronavirus Relief Fund, is to make funds available to states, Indian tribes, territories, and units of local government for necessary expenditures that are incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. Eligible expenditures are those made between March 1st, 2020, December 30th, 2020, and must not have been accounted for in the most recently approved budget. Spending plan approved by the Board of County Commissioners and submitted to the state of Maryland for approval relative to the non-healthcare portion of funding included projects for small business stabilization, nonprofit support, IT expenses related to telework and video conferencing expenses, and miscellaneous expenses. The intention is for staff to return to the next open session to discuss funding qualification and options related to reallocation of unspent funding within each project. And before I turn it over to Susan Buchanan to give an update on the nonprofit support, just for clarity purposes, the non-healthcare portion of the Coronavirus Relief Fund is $13 million.
Susan, you want a handheld microphone or anything?
I can just stand here.
Okay, if staff's, yeah, go ahead, you begin. Staff, bring a microphone out if you're listening. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for taking that precaution.
What a gentleman.
We need to put you in a position of responsibility.
Can you hear? Oh, yes, definitely.
No.
Good morning, Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management, providing an update today on the Together We Serve nonprofit human service providing 501c3 grant. The applications were made available on June 10th, and since that time, we've received 42 applications requesting $572,941. 25 of those applications have been approved for a total of $364,595. The remaining have either been denied or are still in the review process. The eligible uses of the funding include provision of essential supplies and food, cost of personal protective equipment for the employees providing services, costs associated with virtual delivery of services, costs related to ensuring emergency and homeless shelters operate safely, costs of temporary positions that are necessary to meet the increased demand for some of the services of these nonprofits, and eviction prevention and utility shutoff prevention programs. The applications are being accepted on an ongoing basis until the funds are exhausted or up until November 1st. Awards are capped at $20,000 per entity, and the amount of funding that was set aside from the coronavirus relief funds was $1,186,060. And turn it over to Susan, the other Susan, to get.
Good morning again, Commissioners. So our grant, business stabilization grant for the Together We Rise, we have now received 674 applications. 353 have been approved and are now have either received their checks and their award letters or are still in the process with the county. So that all in total is just over $4.2 million in awarded funds. So that leaves us with a good portion left, but we are only halfway through the applications at this point. So again, our grant was for small business stabilization, not necessarily to replace lost revenue, but to help businesses get back on their feet with any hardships that they may have experienced during the COVID shutdown, with any operational expenses, overhead loss, and that kind of thing, to cover wages, insurance, mortgage, leases, and any extra costs associated with precautions for their staff, PPE, or customers. So we want to continue this. That's up to you. I think we should continue to accept applications. They're still coming in. People are still calling and saying that they just learned about it. So we're just continuing to spread the word to small businesses to continue to accept applications for stabilization. So that's our update this week.
Susan, I heard an advertisement on the radio just the other day about this. I know we're trying multiple outlets. I've received some questions from local tourism officials to see about if any of this money could be, and I think this is the same pot of money, could be used to help re-kickstart a tourism effort in Washington County. Is that where this money would come from, and any thoughts on such an idea?
The intent today was just to give an overview of where we're at with the projects. When we come back, the intent is to provide you with how much is left in each one of these projects and then have a discussion on potential reallocation. That would be a reallocation for that. Quite honestly, about the last week or two, I've heard a couple of ideas. So the intent was to provide the update. I was going to send each of you an email that gave you an idea of what the qualifications are for this money, so that you could potentially look at some of the things that you're getting to see if you thought they fit, and then come back and have a discussion about it at the next meeting. I mean, not that I don't want to answer your question. I'll be more than happy to answer it, but
That's one of many ideas. It sounds like that's one of many ideas that we could.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, this was for information only and updating.
How many?
Right.
How many
It's
of
just
the
information.
business applications have been denied?
There's only 8 in that box, and I'm calling each one to work through. That's worst case. I mean, ours is a little bit different in that we have kind of a wider array of businesses that we can walk through this process. As long as they follow the guidelines and, you know, the P&Ls and the statements that we're asking for can show. Some of their narratives may be a little bit off, and they're directly asking for revenue, so we can't submit that. So.
And did we get an update for the property owners? I know we were talking about that.
I guess that's kind of another part of the conversation.
We're talking about the landlord question from
Yes.
last week. Yeah, that was gonna be part of the next discussion. I mean, unless you wanna have that discussion now, but that kind of feeds into what we can do and reallocate with that money.
I mean, I'm 100%, I think we need to, again, continue this out, and I think let's continue it a little bit longer than 2 weeks, because we keep coming back to it. But if we need to have that discussion now, or if we need to have it next week with everything combined, so we're doing one large discussion, I'm fine with it. But no matter what, I think we need to continue this, because it's $10,000 to our small businesses.
I suggest bringing it back next week so we can have the full discussion.
Yeah. Another kind of idea that I had tossed around with Tom related to the guidelines that we had initially set for business stabilization. We set those guidelines so that there was a very clear path on what's qualified for our grant. But we can open up some of those guidelines. For instance, we asked that the businesses be established prior to September of 2019. Now, we can take a business anytime. They don't have to be established then. But the reason we did that was so that we could see year-over-year profit and loss statements. So if we want to open it up slightly, we can do things like that. I don't know if there's an appetite for that, but we can also talk about that next week.
I would say that the biggest question I have about the business stabilization right now for you guys is, as of today, that program, the application stopped. Because we plan to come back next week and have a further discussion about the reallocation. Do we want to extend that for one more week until we have that discussion? Do you want to extend it for another 2 weeks? I'm just looking for direction, I guess, at this point.
I mean, if we're gonna have the discussion next week, I hate keep doing it every 2 weeks, because it seems like what we're doing, but why not just keep it open for a month, and then we can have the discussion next week, and we can change it next week if we need. If we don't change it, at least we don't have to extend it another week and scare
Couldn't
people.
change it, if you extend it for a month, you couldn't reduce it to 2 weeks.
We could.
Well, you're giving someone the idea of a month and you're shortening it at last minute.
My only thing is if we're extending it 1 week, we're telling people get it in 1 week, and they're like, I can't get the information, I'm done. You know, if we give them at least 2
Well, I'm
weeks.
saying if you're gonna extend it for a month, keep it at a month. You wouldn't want to shorten the deadline after.
Yeah,
a month.
I'm good with that.
If we use up all of the money within that month, we have to stop it anyhow.
Yeah.
Something to consider, commissioners, when determining how long you want to extend it is that if you're coming back next week, or we're coming back next week, to talk a little bit further about eligible uses and possible redirection of funding, we may not want to leave it open if we want to redirect certain funds for other purposes. So I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Meinl-Schmidt, but that's just something to consider as you make your decision.
So you're recommending leaving it closed now, come back next week for that discussion, so we have the availability of funds known.
Yes, either close it now or leave it open for one more week, because I think even if you leave it open for one more week, and I would have to defer to both Susans, would there be enough time to say this is an estimate of how much remains?
How long is it taking to process I know you guys are doing a great job, by the way, but how long does it take to process? Because you have the city review panel, then you have to send it to our vendors list.
Yeah, there's
Send out the letter.
about a 5-step process. So, you know, and it does take multiple county departments to get through it for each one. Yeah, 7 to 10 days, sometimes a little longer, depending on, every file is different that comes in. Sometimes they need multiple phone calls and stuff. But I mean, at this point, even if we awarded all 675 applicants the $10,000, which isn't the case, but even if we did, that puts us at 6.74 million projected.
I think I was going to make a similar point that we could estimate, you know,
You're saying keep it open?
So I mean, we have 8.96 million total.
My suggestion is at least we keep it open for one more week, and we can adjust it next week when we have the full discussion.
Very good. Keep it open the next week. We decide what we're gonna do and then
Okay.
more determination then. Okay.
Were there any other questions about the business stabilization project in this fund?
And it seems like we're gonna have a much bigger discussion next week on everything, correct?
Yes, there were still two other parts left in that, just to give you a quick update. Did you want to talk about the IT part, or did you want me to?
I have the information here.
If you want to talk about the IT
Sure.
part of it, please.
There is a portion of the funds dedicated to an information technology effort and some items under that category, all most related to teleworking, certain items related to the phone system. So currently, employees are unable to make outgoing calls from a county number with their personal cell phone. So that is part of the projected IT costs that we're looking for. Also, mobile device management, which I think we talked about earlier today, with tracking county property off-premise. A virtual workstation management, so managing the configuration and deployment of the virtual workstations. This will allow for full remote management of all hardware associated with the virtual machines and bring the system firmware up to a supported level. Server infrastructure, so one limitation as we entered the lockdown the first time was available resources for virtual machines, as well as a degradation in system response time as many new users were added. So to offset this and prepare for additional load, the primary servers responsible for running this infrastructure require replacement. In addition, creating of more virtual machines require additional storage and expansion of the current system. That is by large the highest cost, around $660,000. Other costs related would be video conferencing systems and backup systems. The total amount allocated to the IT section, I believe, is $1.2 million of the coronavirus relief funds.
And then the last project was a miscellaneous expenses project, and we built that in case we weren't sure at the beginning of this if we were going to need to bring in any contractual help to help manage the different projects and the grants. So that was built into this. The way it stands right now, I think it doesn't look like we're going to need to do that for this. So the funds that are in that may be able to be reallocated to something else at that point. I think that's 1.7.
Yes, 1.7 million in that category. And as we move into the discussion next week, obviously one of the most important things to me in finance is the eligibility of, the items that we are going to be procuring or the services we're going to be providing. So I'm happy to hear that Tom is going to be sending out some of those eligibility requirements for the commissioners to review. And then next week, we will hopefully have an estimate in each category of what remains for the commissioners to discuss.
And that's all we have for that. There's 3 questions.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that clears our agenda. We need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go to closed session.
Is there a second? All in favor, say